The Fjodor Dome is a building in which has been elaborated in all its shapes and spaces the entire man with all his inner and outer skills to be developed, not only our physical shapes and qualities, but as well those that hide in our life processes, in our soul and in our spirit. For instance, there are organ spaces for the investigation in your own inner processes and spaces for the possibilities to develop your own ideals and inner skills that hide on your chakras. There is also a theater hall with organically divided chairs in which music and theater can be performed that deals with karma transformation and the reconnection of inner man with the cosmos from where we come. The Fjodor Foundation supports this work. The people connected to Fjodor are impassioned fellow men who for years do inner work to develop themselves in soul and spiritual skills, and who besides this do projects of landscape healing on wounded places, like former concentration camps and battlefields, that we help to restore energetically, help to liberate the dead people that are being traumatized, help to transform the fallen angels, and as well help the spirits of nature to work again in a healthy way. We also give important landscapes and PowerPoints a renewed impulse by means of the so-called lotus flower dance. With this dance we intend to bring new germ forces of life and freedom that correspond to the Valhalla building. Therewith we can work well on ourselves, and the schooling methods for inner development and the building Valhalla are elaborations of this. The plan for the building as a precipitation of our inner life goes like this. We take in the world through our senses and next elaborate the impressions in our soul, our psyche, before we start doing something with these. Because we have 6 senses that are directed towards the physical world and 7 that are more observing on the levels of the life, the soul and the spirit, the building has 13 gates, and the spaces and corridors behind these are meant as paths to recognize and as well develop yourself in body, soul and spirit. The schooling methods for inner development have been elaborated by the Jasper School. We will paint you these events out of the senses one by one, so that you can understand how the building and the possibilities for development have been worked out. When you approach a physical phenomenon in the world, in this case the building, you at first observe it through the sight sense. When you let the shapes and colors work in you, you touch and sense these inwardly. This you do with the tactile sense. You let the play of lines speak to you. This you do with the movement sense. You orientate yourself on the slanted and straight striving up tendencies. You measure these with your spatial orientation. This you do with your equilibrium sense. You feel whether it suits, and when not, you might feel this as a kind of nausea. That leads you to your life sense. When you approach the building, you want to smell with the olfactory sense and taste with the sense of taste, of its consistence. You feel whether you want to connect to it or not and become inwardly warm or cold. This you do with your warmth sense. You listen inwardly to what the building has to say to you and how it sounds around the building and in the spaces that you trespass. This you do with the auditory sense. Then you try to fathom the building. This you do with your ego sense. You want to understand the thoughts that have worked to the realization. This you do with your thinking sense. And you want to speak about it, search for words for the impression of your thoughts, feelings and willing impulses that are aroused by the building. This you do with your word sense. And thus you have gone through 12 senses when you have fully fathomed the observation of the building and traced within you its consequences. Now we are going to observe the building more close through those senses. We therefore will enter the building through one of the gates that is connected to a specific sense. Through the sight sense you absorb visually the impressions from the world. You suck these in through your eyes. When you have taken in a sight impression, you at first perceive the feeling that this calls forth. You see an after-image of the impression, and you can feel the need to try to grasp its sense. If this succeeds, there forms a light trace in your soul that sparkles up like the fresh green of nature in spring, which can make you feel glad when you understand what you see, as a whole or partially. That is a feeling of fresh gladness which gives you a hold in the observation. The other observed shapes and colors group around it. With a little distance, you observe the workings and gestures of the different colors besides one another. And thus you come to a piece of notion and interiorizing of the observation. One step further is when you come to a deep overall view of the observation. You then have a clairvoyant picture, an imagination. Then you have connected your forehead chakra, your third eye of old, with your crown chakra and opened it anew. Your soul transforms into a chalice in which the spirit can speak itself out. This is being called the Grail Chalice. When you trace even deeper in yourself what you can do with the image and your understanding of it, you encounter deep in yourself where you have intended to develop your ideals. You then enter the spleen process, where you will meet your own willing gestures. Normally you do not perceive this, but with the planet or organ music that has been developed by Jasper, you do come into this process meditatively. This can be observed inwardly as a deep indigo blue tunnel within yourself with all kinds of willing gestures to be felt and touched. With directive instructions in clay modeling, you can get in contact with these. And when you look even deeper within yourself, you come to your ideals, which are a reflection of the 72 star constellations that stand above and beneath the zodiac at the night sky. These consist of spirit colonies, which we have visited before our birth when descending to the earth, and which each one elaborate an idea of the divine plan for creation, to which we can decide to cooperate. On the earth, these are our ideals that we take along as warm crystals in and around us. And these spirit colonies we see as the stars, grouped in constellations. During your life, you get intuitions about these ideals that you can develop. These live deep within your will, and by living along with their rhythms and sounds, you will find the conscious entrance to these. In the building, these star constellations as inner gestures have been worked out in wooden sculptures. The music helps to get in contact with these, and directive instructions in clay modeling help to become more conscious of them. Through this, you can more consciously crystal out how you can realize these ideals in your life. You thus can discover which virtues you need to elaborate to be able to develop yourself all through the resistances of life. Therewith you develop the petals of your lotus flowers, your chakras, and you develop your soul and spirit. These virtues are gestures with which we refine ourselves through the explanation with a life, and they work outwards in the world around us. There are caves in the building in which the 12 main virtues have been worked out. Thus we have trespassed a part of the building, the Fjodor dome, that we have entered with an impression through the sight sense, for along these virtue caves we come to the round corridor around the theater hall and in one of the lobbies in which the catering can help you to digest your impressions while enjoying a drink or a bite. In these lobbies there will be organized as well lectures, courses and meetings. A separate part of the building, above the ground, is the theater hall. You come here from the outside directly through the 13th gate, the one of the community sense. Next, you ascend a few stairs and you can enter the theater hall through an elevation on the first floor, where you have to walk underneath a narrowing of light to feel your spirit flash for a while and realize it yourself. Like this, you will enter the performance awake and alert. From here, you look over the theater hall, of which the seats are organically grouped in the gestures of the inner organ workings. From right to left, these are of the spleen, the liver, the lungs, the gallbladder and the kidneys. You are standing yourself on the hard spot above and in the center of the hall. And you look at the stage that before the performance is made in the form gesture of the star constellation of the Lyre, from where human karma has been initiated. On stage there will be worked with performances that deal with karma. This can be music, theater, ritual and music theater. Around the hall, on the first floor, wind the form gestures of the constellation of the dragon, that points with its head and tail to the stage. This is the image for the beings of darkness that we used to call evil, and of which this star constellation of the dragon is the starting point. On the stage, this in-binding karma is being transformed into good by becoming conscious and turning things into love by the performances that take place there. The hall offers room to over 500 spectators. It is in the middle of the building, which represents the heart and feeling realm. The stage is the place of act, and it is situated in the will part of the building pointing west. The rooms for the organ processes are underneath of the building, under the theater hall, and are only accessible when you want to perform inner work in these. There also take place specific projects and rituals, and they will be used for therapy as well. In the garden around the building are bronze sculptures that reflect resurrection forces that can lead to the healing of your organs and to the transformation of these into higher soul and spiritual organs. These can also be applied for therapeutic processes. The expenses for the building and garden have been estimated 50 million euros. There will be worked by a team of people that, besides with constructing, are familiar with the schooling methods of Jasper. From the people in it will be demanded artistic empathy for its inner processes as well. The building will be financed by gifts and crowdfunding that are managed by the Fjodor Foundation. On the website of the Fjodor Foundation, fjodorfoundation.org, you will find more information. Help us to realize this humanity-building Vidahala. It can offer to many people the insights that are needed to deal with the earthly circumstances for the good and transform these. And when you are interested in a broader explanation of the building, see our homepage and click the English text. You will find a page of explanation. We thank you for your attention and interest.